Welcome to Lunch Break Sports. Hello, everyone. We are back for episode 10 of Lunch Break Sports. I'm your host, Joey Sherman. I'm with my co-host, Reed Benos.
What's up?
And to start the episode, I wanted to talk about the podcast as a whole. I'm just really appreciative that we got this far with the podcast. I want to thank my friends who have helped me, like Reed, like Michael, and everybody else who's hopped on the podcast. I want to thank my advisors at school. And I really want to thank everybody, listens to the podcast, tells me about it, walks up to me in the hallways and tells me a segment they liked, something they would like to see on the podcast, people asking to be on the podcast. It's really just like a great journey. And, it's a lot harder to make a podcast than you would think, which is definitely what I've learned. There's actually a statistic that 9 out of every 10 podcasts does not make it past episode 3. We've clearly done that. And out of those 1 out of 10 that make it past episode 3, 9 out of 10 of those don't make it to episode 20. We're halfway there. I don't intend on stopping. And yeah, this has been a great journey. Thank you, Reed. Thank you, Michael, who's not here right now, but thank you. And let's start this episode. This is going to be an NFL-centered episode, primarily speaking about the draft. Now, me and Reed have prepared 3 of our winners of the draft and 3 of our losers of the draft. We're also going to talk about the Giants because, it's a New York area podcast. And I also want to preface it by saying that, as long as you don't take like kicker in every round of the draft, it's pretty difficult to get an F or like a terrible draft. So while we have our losers, like they still made some good picks in our eyes, but just not as consistent and as good as everybody else. So to start off, I think the winner of the draft, who do we have there, Reed?
For the winner of the draft, we have the Raiders drafting Mendoza. And he was projected to go first overall, so it wasn't really a big surprise.
I mean, it's just the right pick. If you have number 1, you have all the time in the world to figure out who you want to take. It's a great pick. And then in rounds 2 and 3, they took Stukes and Crawford, who I think they're decent picks. I don't think they're anything crazy, but I think where they really took the number 1 for me was when they took Jermod McCoy in the 4th round. Now, McCoy was a cornerback from Tennessee, I believe, and he was projected to go top 10 in the draft, but he had a very concerning knee injury, and he slid all the way to the 4th round, which is really just sad to see in any way, just to see somebody who had this injury and have them slip all the way, and maybe it'll derail his career. But I think the potential is clearly there for him to be that good, and to take a 4th round stab at him, I think, is a great idea. I also want to say that, for me, I'm going to mention this later as well, but when I'm drafting in the later rounds, I want to draft guys who have, even if I would rather draft a guy who has shown he could be that guy than took a little bit of a step backwards, rather than somebody who is really fast or really strong or just has the athleticism.
Yeah, I agree with you. They just had an overall great draft.
And who do we have at the second best draft?
The second best draft, we have the New York Jets.
Now, the first pick the Jets made was David Bailey. Now, going into this draft, everybody was wondering, are the Jets going to take Arvell Reese with the second overall pick, the linebacker threat from Ohio State, or are they going to take David Bailey from Texas Tech? And it's important to understand that, it wasn't such an easy decision. At first, people thought it'd be Arvell Reese. Recently, people thought it'd be David Bailey. It was confusing. But people are drawing comparisons to the year where it was Trayvon Walker versus Aiden Hutchinson, in which people said Aiden Hutchinson was better now, but Trayvon Walker had the higher ceiling, and it turns out that Aiden Hutchinson was much better. So I'm not really that upset with this David Bailey pick at all. In fact, I kind of like it. And honestly, with the way the Jets have been drafting in the past couple of years, I kind of have to trust the front office, the general manager. If they think that David Bailey is the guy, they should take David Bailey, and they shouldn't even worry about taking Arvell Reese. And then next they took Kenyon Sadiq.
Yeah, Kenyon Sadiq he's a great tight end. He's from Oregon. The Jets took him with their 16th overall pick. People thought he would go earlier than that. And one thing about him is that he's an insane athlete. He destroyed at the combine. He's fast. He's just a great overall player. People say that he plays like Brock Bowers and Kyle Pitts.
Yeah, I mean, those are like pretty freak athlete tight ends that are basically wide receivers. It's essentially just a target for whoever's playing quarterback for the Jets.
Yeah, I think it's just another great option to have on the Jets. And the Jets drafted tight end Mason Taylor last year with the second round pick. I don't know if he's going to get any touches this year because of Kenyon Sadiq.
Yeah, it's going to be a little confusing because, I mean, Mason Taylor, maybe you could say he's more of a blocker, but he really did get a decent amount of touches last year. Like, I remember he was like a waiver pickup in fantasy for a few weeks. Like,
Yeah.
he got the touches.
And then another thing to take into account is that early tight ends are really important, especially now in the NFL. And the big question here is that will he end up like Brock Bowers and be one of the best tight ends in the league, basically wide receiver, get the most touches on his team, or will he end up like Kyle Pitts and have not too great of a season?
And, even though the Jets are taking an extra tight end here, you may think that, like, oh, that means they're going to get him more touches. But with Kyle Pitts, they took him with, like, what, the third overall pick? That's a huge pick, and they really didn't use him much. The next pick they made was Omar Cooper Jr., and I really like this pick. He is the wide receiver from Indiana. People actually had him going to the Jets at 16. Now, when the Jets originally took Kenyon Sadiq, what was going through my mind, I was a little upset because I wanted the receiver there, maybe Mekhi Lemon. Um, but I think the Omar Cooper pick definitely makes up for it. Omar Cooper's a great receiver. He was projected to go to the Jets at 16, maybe in some mock drafts. So I really like the pick. And next pick we have D'Angelo Pons. Now Pons is very, very similar to head coach Aaron Glenn. Like that was his comp, his NFL comp. And I mean, he's 5'8". He really doesn't play like he's 5'8". He's a lockdown corner. He's incredible. He also played for Indiana. And I think it's important to understand that like these Indiana guys, they have a winning culture. I mean, they just won the national championship, and that's the type of thing the Jets need. So to get multiple Indiana guys really doesn't upset me at all. And as I was looking back at this Jets draft, I saw an interesting pattern. When they went with David Bailey over Arvell Reese, like, Arvell Reese struggled. Like, he had, like, a .4 GPA in high school, and, like, he
Yeah.
can sometimes, like, struggle, like, expressing himself. On the other hand, David Bailey, he went to school at Stanford, and he can really talk, and he's a very smart guy. And then you take Mekhi Lemon, who has done some questionable things. He gives off a strange vibe. So I think maybe the Jets' strategy was to avoid guys like that, and go for like guys that they can like trust more. I don't. I think it's kind of an important pattern to notice, and I think it's a reasonable one.
Yeah. So the Jets also took Cade Klubnik. He's a quarterback from Clemson. He was projected to go round 1 before the season, but he actually had a pretty big step back. And he's still obviously a very talented player, but people are just questionable about him, and they thought he might go a little later in the draft.
Yeah, I mean, people had other quarterbacks ahead of Kate Klubnik on the board. Me personally, I'm fine with it. Again, if the Jets think he could be a decent player, like you should take him. He clearly had a run where he was that guy. He kind of took the step back, but it doesn't matter that much. Like in the fourth round, it's still good talent. They also took Darrell Jackson Jr., like a defensive tackle from Florida State. He's just like a run stuffer. It's good to get him behind Devondre Sweat, but nothing that crazy there. And then for the last two picks they made, this is where I think they earned their second spot, even after already having an amazing draft. They took Inez Cooper from Miami, and they also took VJ Payne. Now, these were two guys that could have gone in the third or fourth rounds, and they got them in round 6 and round 7, which is just incredible value for the Jets here. And I think these guys will help our team immensely, and I think they're just great picks, which is why I have the Jets as the second best draft.
Mm-hmm. On the third best draft, we have the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, I mean, the Cleveland Browns, I think they really nailed it with the receiver picks that they had, because the Browns took Denzel Boston, and they also took KC Concepcion, and those are two guys who were really highly regarded. People thought they'd be first round picks, and so they had picks 9, 24, and 39, and so they used 24 and 39 on two very talented receivers, and they were also able to spend their ninth pick on Spencer Fano, a tackle from Utah, which I thought was also a great pick.
Yeah, I think thing the Browns need the most is offense. And with those with those two wide receiver picks for their second and third pick, I think they're just a really good fit for the Browns, which is why I think we have them in our third spot.
Now, the most interesting pick for me when I look at this Browns team, I see Taylor Green in the sixth round. Now, Taylor Green was a very physically gifted quarterback from Arkansas. He an amazing runner. He's kind of like I hate to say it, but a Justin Fields type player. But obviously there's a higher ceiling in him. I'm a little confused as to why the Browns took him though, because the Browns already took like multiple late round quarterbacks in the previous draft. Maybe they really don't trust Dylan Gabriel and really don't trust George Sanders, and they're just in that position. But if I were them, I would try and take a flyer on another position, maybe even another wide receiver. I think would have been more helpful here.
Yeah, you also see that they drafted two tight ends, which they're it just seems like they're trying to stack up their offense a little more and just give their young quarterbacks more people to throw to.
Now, before we go into the losers of this draft, we can talk about how the Giants did. So the Giants with their three, we're going to talk about their first three picks in the draft because those are the most important. Reed, you can take the first pick here.
The first pick that the Giants took is Arvell Reese, a linebacker out of Ohio State. They took him fifth pick overall. And I think a lot of Giants fans are very happy about this pick. And he's a great player. He was projected to go, I think, second or third, and the Giants managed to get him at fifth, which it's a great pick. All right, the next pick that the Giants took, this was at the 10th overall pick, and the Giants actually traded Dexter Lawrence for this pick. So we got Francis Maui Noah, an offensive tackle out of Miami. And I personally really like this guy, especially because he said that he was willing to die for our quarterback, Jackson Dart. And I just think that that's exactly what we needed on our team because we don't, Jackson Dart and Scattaboo, they just need people to be protecting them at all times because they're young, they're aggressive, and yeah.
I also think, we have to mention the Evan Neal pick back in 2022. That was pretty much a disaster for the Giants. I mean, they took him really high. He's supposed to be their offensive lineman, and he wasn't. And the Giants have really struggled everywhere, including offensive line. So for them to address both their defensive and offensive needs in the first round, I think is a great move by them.
Yeah, for sure. And then the next pick was Colton Hood, a cornerback out of Tennessee. He was projected to go 21st, and the Giants actually got him 37th, which is obviously good. And yeah, I think a cornerback, again, like the Giants aren't too stacked on cornerbacks. I know they have Drew Phillips, Deontay Banks, but
We actually met Drew Phillips, fun fact.
yeah, we did.
Yeah.
But I just think another one to go like with them is just a good pick overall for the Giants.
I also think it's funny that people are saying it's like neighborhood because you have Malik Neighbors and Colton Hood. I think that's fun, but I do think this is a great pick for them. Colton Hood, people thought he'd be in the first round, went to the second. Cornerback, defensive need again. I think it's just a great pick. I think a lot of teams had great drafts. It was hard to pick three that we had a favorite, but I certainly was a fan of this Giants draft. Now we're gonna move into the three biggest losers of the draft.
All right, so for the biggest loser of the draft, we have the Cardinals.
Now, people may question our decision on why the Cardinals would be the worst because they took Jeremiah Love. Now, I certainly do think Jeremiah Love is an amazing running back. The talent is there. The athleticism is there. He just is probably going to be a stud if we're being honest. But the thing about this Cardinals team is that they have so many issues on both sides of the ball that taking a running back with the third overall pick was not a good idea. They could have traded back. They could have taken Arvell Reese. They could have taken a superstar guy like that, but instead they go with the running back. And I understand that running backs are more important now than they have been in the past few years, but I still think that they could have taken a more important position.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, it's like they don't really have anyone besides Jeremiah Love now. Like, and I think running back was the least of their problems heading into this draft.
And we have to also mention the fact that Caleb Proctor was taken the 4th. Everyone thinks it's a huge reach. People project him to go in the 7th.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely a good defensive lineman, but
I'm not sure if he should have been in the 4th round. There was
yeah,
better talent on
I
the board
agree.
for sure. And it's also important to mention Carson Beck, the quarterback for Miami. He's been in the college football world for a while now. He's been on a few different teams. Finally gets drafted. He goes 3rd round. I think it's a fine pick. You're taking your flyer at a 3rd round QB. It's an interesting pick. I I like the pick. Um, I think it's a fine pick. There's nothing
Yeah,
too crazy about it, but it's also not terrible.
yeah. I personally like Carson Beck just as a player, so yeah, I have nothing wrong with this pick. For the next biggest loser of the draft, we have the San Francisco 49ers. They took Deshaun Shrivling with their first pick
Of
in
the second
round,
round,
yeah, the
yeah.
second round. And one thing about him is that, first of all, he was projected to go about 48th pick, and he was taken at the 33rd pick of the second round. And then just a lot of people would have just took Denzel Boston over him. But
I think basically everybody had Boston as the better receiver.
yeah,
We talked about him going to the Browns. I think it's a good pick for the Browns. I just don't think you should trade up for Stribling so high when he was basically projected to fall much later. And even if you don't end up getting him because of that, there's certainly other receiver talent in the second round. And who was our last loser of the draft, Reed?
our last loser of the draft is going to be the Los Angeles Rams, who took Ty Simpson.
This is probably the most crazy and interesting pick of the draft. In previous years we've seen, the Michael Penix pick was shocking. The Jahmyr Gibbs pick was interesting because that was like a second first round running back in a time where that was kind of like not the norm. But Ty Simpson, the Rams right now are a win now team. They want to go and win a Super Bowl right now.
Mm-hmm.
And getting a backup quarterback with your first round pick isn't the best move to win now. I understand that they're building for the future and to learn under an MVP quarterback using this pick that basically they got for free through a trade. I think it's a good idea, but if they really, really want to commit to winning the Super Bowl, I think it would have been smarter to take somebody who has huge impact or trade back and get, like, you can trade. I mean, Dexter Lawrence was traded for the 10th pick. What do you think you get for the 13th pick? Something similar. I
Yeah.
think either you take the talent at a different position or you trade it for a different stud or, I mean, they made the pick. It's a fine pick. That's why we have him, not as our biggest loser. But they still could have done much better in this draft.
Yeah, I mean, Todd Simpson, he's obviously a very good player, but it's just definitely not what they need, especially when they have Matthew Stafford, who is an MVP candidate a lot of the years that he's been in the league.
And also the second round tight end they took, Max Clare. He was supposed to go 4th or 5th round. That was a big reach. Um, I just think they could have drafted a little better. But again, it's kind of hard to have such an amazing draft when you only have 5 draft picks in the whole thing. But that was our loser. So that was me and Reed's recap of the whole draft. There's obviously players we didn't talk about in the first round. Coming into fantasy season, we're going to talk about all the best offensive rookies to look out for in the draft. That'll be next year. But yeah, let's go to this next and final segment.
All
Thank you,
right.
Reed.
Yep.
Our Super Bowl favorites. All right, I'm here for my final segment with Mr. Stern.
Hey, Joey, thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being on here. And me and Reed just talked about the draft, our winners and losers, and so we're going to be talking now about who we think is the most likely chance of winning the Super Bowl after the draft. So let's kick it off. Who do you have at your 5th most likely, number 5?
Well, let me tell you about my formula for how I'm thinking about this right now in the moment, albeit, we're many, many months away from the season starting. So when I formulated this list and thought about it, there are a few factors that I take into consideration. I consider, does this team, A, have a great quarterback? Does this team have a great coach? Did this team do well in the draft to fill some of their holes? And one of the most overlooked factors here is this team going to have an easy schedule this year.
Mm,
And oftentimes what that means is a team that may have gone through some injuries last year and wasn't as good as expected can really make a comeback this year because of that favorable schedule
True,
and because of the
true.
players that they have. And so, with that in mind, when I factored all of these things, I looked at the standings from last year. There were a few teams that are just kind of outside of my top five that I would say are maybe kind of sleeper picks somewhat. I considered the San Francisco 49ers. The issue with them, as you know, is just injury plagued. They're an older team, but they are very, very skilled. If they can avoid injury, they could definitely be at the top of this list. Likewise, a younger team, but sort of similar kind of situation, the Los Angeles Chargers. Definitely Justin Herbert, I think, is amazing. I think they have a pretty solid defense, a great coach. But they do have a pretty tough division, a pretty tough road.
For sure.
And if there's one like major sleeper, like a really sneaky pick, I'm going to say somebody might come out of the NFC East that might surprise you. And no, it's not the Philadelphia Eagles.
The Cowboy. He's a Cowboys
It's
fan?
not the
Oh.
Dallas Cowboys.
Think it's the
And
Giants?
it's not the New York Giants.
Oh, okay.
I think that
The Washington Commanders.
the Washington Commanders under Jaden Daniels, right? If he can make a comeback from his sophomore slump, which was a bit injury plagued, man, I think that kid's great. And, they might be a team that surprises. But ultimately, we'll see how that goes. But if you want me to get into my top five here, again, the factors being quarterback, coach, easy schedule, and maybe also a superstar player and how well they did in the draft. My number 5 pick for who might win the Super Bowl this year at this moment is the Detroit Lions, right? I know they weren't great last year, but they were so injury plagued. But man, do they have skill position players and maybe one of the easiest schedules coming this year because of the fact that they finished so low last year. Goff is a really good quarterback, but Amon-Ra St. Brown is just amazing. Aiden Hutchinson is amazing.
And Jamison Williams is a great compliment to Amon-Ra.
Absolutely, right? I think offensively, they've got it going on. They've got a star on defense. They've got an easy schedule. The Lions are my number 5 pick.
So for me, you talked about your factors. It was very teachery, I must say. But for me, my factors for a team like this are, 1, do you have a good quarterback? I mean, it's pretty simple to the leader of the team. Number 2, are you a winning organization? Like, do you know how to win football games? Do you know, like, that you can get to these games? And, like, it's more talking about the teams that have the talent but haven't really made it versus the teams that, like, haven't had the chance to yet. Like, I think that, like, other teams that, like, haven't had the opportunity to get that far because they haven't had a good enough team, like, I trust them a little more than I'm going to say this team was snubbed from my list, the Bills. I don't think the Bills have that winning in their, like, DNA. And so another thing I consider when doing this is, do you have, like, an anchor on offense and defense? Like, do you have that one superstar, maybe not even the quarterback? Like, for example, those Chiefs teams that kept winning the Super Bowl over and over again, even though they had Patrick Mahomes, they had the offensive anchors like Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. And then on the defensive end, they had Chris Jones, who's also a superstar. I think those are really important in tandem.
Yeah, maybe one of the most underrated defensive superstars in all of the NFL, to be honest with you.
I completely agree with that. And so for my number 5 pick, you put them in your honorable mentions. Another honorable mention here would be the Packers. I think they have a lot of decent players. I'm not sure if they're going to go all the way, but they certainly could make a run. But my number 5 is the 49ers. Now, I think that, as a Jets fan, I've seen Aaron Rodgers go down. I'm, like, scared of all injuries. Like, I completely understand that. But when I'm looking at teams, like, it's hard for me to discredit a team with, like, because that you think they'll get injured. Even when this team was severely injured, and didn't they make it to, like, the second round of the playoffs with an incredibly injured team, which is very impressive in my eyes.
And not only that, but they beefed up their offense a little bit. Didn't they pick up Mike Evans?
They did pick up Mike Evans. I think they look like a very big sleeper team. I think they have a winning organization. They made it to the Super Bowl twice in recent history. While maybe they didn't win it, they've made it to that game before, and I think that's good enough for me to trust them with my 5. So who do you have at your 4?
So at number 4 is actually a team you mentioned before, and if I'm being honest, they don't have everything that I listed here. But the fact of the matter is Josh Allen is just that guy. He is just the man. He is a transcendent talent, and honestly, it's such a shame that he is not surrounded with some better skilled players on offense. But defensively, they are pretty solid. He's just such a transcendent QB. Let's be real. He plays in the AFC East, and two teams I can already eliminate from the AFC East: the Jets and the Dolphins. Of course, the Patriots will be a challenge, but the Patriots are going to have a harder schedule than the Bills this year. And so, really, if I'm being honest, the sole reason why I have the Bills on this list is Josh Allen. He is the man.
I mean, they don't really have much else. And I'm going to say, like, kind of a little bit of a tangent, but I think the AFC East in the next few years, like, coming from an unbiased opinion, like, could kind of shock the league a little bit.
An unbiased opinion, Jerry?
I mean, like, yeah, I'm a huge Jets fan, and I like our draft, but, like, we have got a lot of solid players, and we're obviously preparing for the 2027 draft. Like, we've seen organizations that have been consistently losing, like the Commanders were, like the Chiefs were, just hit on a quarterback and just fly to the top. And I think the Jets are preparing for that. And on the other hand, the Dolphins, I think they're a little bit underrated. I don't think these teams are going to make huge playoff runs. I just think the AFC East won't be as abysmal as people think in the next few years. I think with Malik Willis, they could do something.
It's funny you should mention that. I don't know if you saw Malik Willis the other day throw out a first pitch at a Miami Marlins game. Definitely check it out. It is interesting, to say the least.
I mean, Fernando Mendoza, I think, did the same thing. A lot of quarterbacks do that. But I mean, if you don't play baseball in college or high school, like, I wouldn't expect somebody.
The man throws a ball for a living.
I know, but like, it's kind of a different, like, form completely. Like, the mechanics are a little bit similar, but like the way you actually throw the ball is pretty different.
Agreed.
Okay. So you had the Bills at your 4. I had the Lions at my 4. I think they're a really solid team, like you said. Goff isn't, like, amazing, but he's certainly a solid quarterback. Gibbs, now they have Pacheco as the number 2. I like that move. Amon-Ra, Jameson Williams, I mean, you mentioned all these guys. They're also just a winning I mean, I really like Dan Campbell. I mean, they haven't made it that far, but they haven't been good enough that far to say that they failed. Like, in my eyes, like, the Bills have been good with Josh Allen for long enough and not made it super far to say that they failed. But the Lions made it, like, decently far.
Yeah, I mean, and I know I'm saying this to a Jets fan here, but if there is an organization that just historically just finally deserves something, it is those Detroit Lions.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. We were kind of in the same boat for a while until, they got good and we didn't. Who do you have at your 3?
So my number 3 here is another team that is often plagued with injuries, but when they are healthy, watch out, because they are probably the most high-powered offense in the league, and that is the Cincinnati Bengals.
Really? At 3?
Yeah.
That is a very hot take. I hope you know that.
Well, they're coming out of a division that, was mediocre at best last year. I mean, Cleveland, forget about it. They're not going to do anything. Pittsburgh, getting rid of Mike Tomlin, I don't know if that's going to be the move there. Who knows what Aaron Rodgers' deal is. And I do always like the Baltimore Ravens, but it's a whole new regime in Baltimore. I don't know yet if I can really trust that team. I do think they beefed up the offense a little bit. So I really think that this division is really the Bengals for the taking. I mean, Joe Burrow is just he could go down as an all-time great quarterback if he can just stay healthy. Jamar Chase is just a beast. They beefed up their defense in a big way in the draft, and they have an easy schedule in a pretty mediocre division. So watch out for the Cincinnati Bengals. And, it's not like they weren't in the Super Bowl just a few years ago.
I mean, I think the Bengals certainly might be better than people think. I don't think they're going to be in the playoffs, like, at all. I really think they're not going to be that good of a team. And yeah, they did kind of get Dexter Lawrence, but I'm really worried about where these allocated funds are going because most of the money is fueling this offense. And it's not like they're putting it into offensive line. They're putting it into their quarterback, their top 2 receivers, and then 1 good defensive player, which is like, I know I said that those are all good things to have, but like, they really don't have anything like else going for them besides that. I'm just worried about how they're ever going to find good like talent. I mean, it's going to have to be from draft picks, which, I mean, they just traded one away for Dexter Lawrence, so.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, if you can keep Joe Burrow upright, if you can keep him protected, they're gonna score points.
Yeah,
So,
I mean they've really had trouble, protecting Joe
for
Burrow.
sure.
That's been the biggest setback for them, and I don't think they can overcome it this season. But my three, I have the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, this is a team that people kind of counted out a little bit because of their down year last year. But if you look at what's happened, right, they weren't the best team, and Patrick Mahomes is the type of guy that you can never really count out of any situation. He's such a great leader. He's such a great talent. He's so good at football. People have him in the GOAT conversations for a reason. I mean, they really crushed the pick with Patrick Mahomes a couple years ago. He's really led them to multiple Super Bowls. Andy Reid is a great coach. I just really trust this Chiefs team to, make a comeback run.
I think Patrick Mahomes, when healthy, is one of the greatest football players I've ever seen in my life. The creativity is off the charts. The team chemistry is off the charts. Andy Reid as coach, all-time great. But I'll be talking about them soon.
I think he's just been a great leader for this team, and I don't want to count them out, especially since they just acquired Kenneth Walker and had a good draft.
My number 2 team is another team recently in the Super Bowl and with a MVP quarterback in the form of Matthew Stafford. And that is the Los Angeles Rams. It pains me to say this as a University of Florida graduate, but Matthew Stafford is a fantastic quarterback. McVay is just maybe one of the most brilliant coaches I've ever seen. Puka Nakua obviously is just a monster. And as far as their schedule, I mean, it's not like the easiest schedule, but it's definitely not the hardest schedule either. Yeah, so look out for the Rams because it's just that combination of all-time quarterback, all-time coach, great wide receiver. They're not the Rams of old, right? They're certainly not the greatest show on turf, nor are they really, the Aaron Donald Rams, but there's something about them. I think they're really a solid team.
And they do know how to win. I mean, they won just a couple of years ago against the Bengals, who you mentioned. For my two, I have the Seahawks. Now, they just came off the Super Bowl. I know their path may have been a little easier than past years, but in the NFC, it certainly wasn't an easy path whatsoever. They had to go through the 49ers, which was a grueling game. They had to go through the Rams, and then the Patriots in the Super Bowl wasn't that difficult, but it was still a tough run for them. I think you don't even have them on your list.
Yeah, honestly, it's one of the most difficult divisions to get through if you think about it, that AFC West. You've got to deal with San Francisco. You've got to deal with the Rams that I just mentioned here. I mean, yeah, it could be up in the air here. And for sure, thinking about the Seahawks, they are the defending champs. But, they're going to have a tougher schedule. Everybody's going to make them a target. I'm not saying they're not going to be a good team. I think they are going to be a good team. Heck, I think they could be easily a wild card team. But I see this as a division that the Rams are going to take this year.
Really? I mean, I think I'm going to come down on you just a little bit. I think it's absolutely insane to not even include them as an honorable mention, considering, the whole people said this year the Super Bowl was essentially the Seahawks versus the 49ers. Then whoever won that game would win. And in such like a toss-up game where nobody really knows who's going to come out on top, I don't know how you can have one of those teams as the number 2 favorite and one of those teams not even on the list. I think they're definitely good enough. They know how to win. They just won a Super Bowl. I think they're more than talented enough to win it.
I don't think it's crazy for 3 AFC West teams to make the playoffs, honestly.
3 AFC West?
Yeah.
Or NFC?
Sorry, NFC West here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't think it's. I mean, it just happened.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. I think it definitely could happen. So who do you have as your one?
Well, my number 1 pick, I think I alluded to this earlier, and it is a team that I know historically a lot of people are getting pretty tired of, but I don't know, they're pretty darn talented, and that is the Kansas City Chiefs. I think Andy Reid is an all-time great coach. Patrick Mahomes could go down as really one of the greatest quarterbacks ever to live. They still have that offensive power. There is that just something with Mahomes and Kelsey. And, as we said, one of the more underrated aspects of the Chiefs is that defense led by Chris Jones. I mean, he is just an amazing player. And the fact of the matter is they were not great last year because of all of these injuries, and they have a very easy schedule this year. And I think that is something that is really going to catapult them to the forefront here.
So for my number one team, I have the Los Angeles Rams. I mean, they are really an incredible team with with the Super Bowl winning quarterback, MVP winning quarterback. You have two of the best wide receivers in the league. Puka Nacua, definitely conversation for the best wide receiver. You have a
Oh,
great running back.
Forgot about Devontae, right? I didn't even mention
Yeah,
him before.
Devontae. Yeah, and two great
Another,
receivers.
he could be one of the all-time great wide receivers.
Oh, for sure. The tight end room is improving. The the defense is great. I mean, you just got Trent McDuffie. It just looks like an amazing team. They also have Jared Verse. I also want to mention what they did in the draft. A lot of people are coming down on them if they want to be a Super Bowl winning team. I bet if I were the Rams and I was doing this draft and I'm looking at the board and I'm like, okay, we already have a great running back. We already have great receivers. Our team is basically like
Yeah, they're
the
pretty
best,
set.
very set. What's the most beneficial pick we can take with number 13? And they were thinking, okay, we could take Mekhi Lem, we could take a wide receiver, we could take the tight end. I think personally they should have taken the tight end. I think they should have
Yeah.
taken Kenyon Sadiq. But let's say they didn't like Sadiq. Okay, let's say they didn't think he was going to turn out in the league. If you're the Rams, I think they decided that they would rather take their quarterback for the future and develop him under Matthew Stafford rather than take a receiver who's going to be a wide receiver 3. And the fact of the matter is, they're not going to have an opportunity to get the 13th overall pick for a very long time. They're not going to get the opportunity next year when it's a loaded draft. They're not going to be able to get somebody as good as Ty Simpson to put as the backup. And I think they're doing this to save themselves for the future while also giving them a great chance to win now.
Yeah, I think it is a look to the future. I'm not overly impressed with Ty Simpson, to be honest with you, as a big fan of SEC football. You know, I've seen some better quarterbacks, I think, that have come out of Alabama.
Oh, for sure.
But hey, what do I know? Sean McVay, I think, knows a lot more football than I do. I can admit that. And you know, as you said, Matthew Stafford as as sort of a de facto quarterback coach as well. I mean, maybe this kid develops into something amazing.
And like maybe they reached a little bit to get Ty Simpson, but I think their thought process was like, if we can get him in any way, like the pick isn't really going to help us as much elsewhere. Like it's worth it to just reach on him and take the best guy available. I'm not saying I agree with the pick, but I think that's what was going through their minds. So yeah, I mean, I have the Rams at number 1. You have the Chiefs. Yeah, I think this is good. Thank you, Mr. Stern, for being on, and that's the episode.
All right, thank you for having me.